Hey there, generators. Thanks for joining me for your intuitive reading. If you're new to the channel, I do my readings based on the 5 human design types, and I use tarot, oracle cards, and sometimes runes. All right, and lastly, my readings are non-date specific, so if the message resonates with you, then it's your message at this time. Okay, let's get started. All right, so let's talk about your current situation. So what's coming up right now for you is that there's this need to take a pause, which is kind of funny because we have this brown bear spirit, and he has this big old paw mark on his chest, taking a pause. Uh-oh, pun intended. And one thing I noticed here is like this sort of like mandala kind of thing around him. It reminded me of sometimes when you need to update the software on your computer or your phone or whatever, and it sort of shuts everything down, and it has this, you know, sort of circular symbol, and it keeps going around while it's updating in the background, and you can't use anything, like you can't make calls, you can't do emails, you can't do any of that. You just sort of have to accept it and walk away. So I sort of feel like that's where you are right now. Like there's a need to just, it doesn't mean that you can't go back to it. Like just because you're updating your software doesn't mean that you can no longer use your computer or your phone. You just have to wait a little bit for it to do its thing. And you have to go focus on something else. And usually it's like, well, you can't do work, you gotta go do something fun, or, you know, just take your focus off those, you know, action items. And the clarifier card for Brown Bear is, oh, that gnome. He's sort of making that silly face. It sort of makes me think of, have you ever tried to have a serious conversation with someone, and maybe you were like in a bad mood, or you're just like, we really need to hash this out. We really need to, like, you know, set the boundaries and identify the problems, and you're trying to be so serious about it, and the other person is just like kind of trying to make jokes, and you know, you're getting irritated. You're like, but it's not funny, why aren't you listening? And then, you know, they keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing the tension until finally, hopefully, you have that breaking point where you just like bust out in laughter, and you finally break that, like, you know, the glass breaks, that face that of seriousness, you finally let it go, and you're like, all right, okay, it is kind of funny. I do need to lighten up a little bit, you know. So that's sort of the message, is like, you just need to walk away for a minute, take a pause, and maybe have a little bit of a laugh, lighten up, crack a joke, flash a smile. It'll still be there when you get back to it. It just, you know, you're getting a software update, it's time to walk away. All right, so what are you moving away from this week, or at this time? Well, I think that, you know, it is taking that pause. I think it's stepping away from your ideas so that you can give it more time to take shape. Like I said, just because you step away doesn't mean that you don't pursue the idea again. It just means for this moment, maybe step away. I know a lot of times in my design work, sometimes I can create a design and I can walk away from it from a day or a few days or a week and go back to it with these fresh eyes. And suddenly I can really thoughtfully critique my own work and self-edit in a way that I couldn't in that initial moment. So sometimes it's really important that as much as we are like, we feel that pressure, sometimes the pressure is pressure we put on ourselves, sometimes it's pressure that others put on us, but to get things out there faster, to be doing, to be these human doings instead of human beings, there's that pressure, but don't rush the process. We actually learn a lot from the process. So don't miss out on that. What you gain from, pursuing the idea is not just the outcome. It's the whole entire journey. And that, after that time away, sometimes the aha moment is that much stronger or that much clearer, with just those fresh eyes. The clarifier card for Electric Eel is the Glockener. The Glockener, paired with this, is talking about taking your time before you make commitments. So all of this is just saying, just take a minute, We may feel really like we want to dive in and we want to commit and we want to lock this in. But, read the fine print, make sure there's a good foundation. And there is a personality or a dynamic that comes out with this card that is the book calls it the used car salesman, but for me, that can be a little bit cheesy and over the top. For me, this can be somebody who is super charismatic, or something that is very alluring, but maybe doesn't have a lot of substance, or doesn't have, like, it looks really good on the outside, but when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's kind of shady. That is the need to take a little time to look through that, because you want to make sure that you're not buying into something that is not being truthful, not being authentic, scams, that sort of thing, or just not in alignment with what you're going for. So just take a moment to step away. I think that's what we're talking about. What you're moving towards. Again, this talks about time and shifting our focus from the past or the future to the present. We have here Flamingo Spirit, embrace the in-between. Sometimes, as humans, we can be nostalgic about our past experiences. Sometimes we even remember things differently than they even happened, because we like to remember, generally, we like to remember things for the good. and you forget maybe the struggles that came along with them. You just remember these sweet moments and get quite nostalgic about it. And we can, really hone in and focus on the future and feel anxious about what's going to happen and how is it all going to play out. So this is really asking us, if you think about flamingos standing on that one leg and just, being in that in-between, it's not quite, 2 feet on the ground. It's not in flight. It's in this in-between moment. It's really being still, being relaxed, finding balance, and transmuting your fears and anxiety into trust and faith. So the clarifier here is Tubera of the waters. And there's actually quite a lot of watery stuff in this reading, which can be emotions coming up. It usually talks about emotions. Here, paired with this flamingo, we're talking about taking time to cool off, to calm down, to quiet the waters of the emotions before you take action. So I've been listening to and reading many energy updates, astrological updates for the month of May and of May 2020, and there is at this time there is about to be a lot of planets in retrograde, and on top of that there is, I can't remember which aspects, but I know that there are some planetary aspects that are squaring Neptune. Squares are usually a point of tension. They are a challenging aspect and in astrology. And Neptune often is very much about illusions, the fog, not being able to see things clearly, confusion. So there is, with these aspects going on as well as the retrograde, there is this feeling at this time that it's really difficult to find the answers that we're looking for, to have a clear-cut answer of how we move forward and how we, resolve the thing that we've started or take action. And there is, we can either push and push and push for something that is probably not going to really happen at this time, or we can stop spinning our wheels, take the time out, have a little fun with it, and just know that it will come to you. You're totally going to come back to it and, kick ass. But at the moment, there's just this inability to see clearly what you need to do, to see things for what they truly are, and a need to just be in the in-between. So that's your message for this week, or whatever week this is when you watch this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it resonates with you. Leave me a message. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.